the rise of Benito Mussolini in Italy, 1922 to 1945. So we need to know the key factors that led to the rise of Benito Mussolini in Italy. Number one, the negative effects of the First World War. It is said the First World War produced negative results on the Italians. For example, Italy lost about 600,000 people. So as Italy lost 600,000 people, and in this kind of arrangement, we needed to understand that the First World War led to high levels of unemployment in Italy. So Mussolini and his fascism, they used the problems of that time to campaign for themselves to get political what? To get political power. So the negative effects of the First World War led to the rise of Benito Mussolini. Another key result, another key cause, corruption and embezzlement of public funds. I can say that corruption in the government of Victor Emmanuel III, Victor Emmanuel and his ministers embezzled the public funds shamelessly and in a broad daylight. So it is this that made the masses to support Benito Mussolini. Why did they support Mussolini? Because Mussolini promised to solve the problems related to corruption and embezzlement. So it is this that led to the rise of Mussolini. Because Victor Emmanuel failed to solve the hard problems of that time, like corruption, embezzlement of government money, and this gave an upper hand to Mussolini to rise to what? To power. Another key point, the influence of the Socialist or Communist Party. It is said this contributed to the rise of Mussolini. The wealthy middle class capitalists fully supported Mussolini morally and financially. Why? Because as communism was spreading in Europe, the capitalists who had money feared to lose their money. Since in a communist state, all of properties are supposed to be owned by the government. So by this time, the capitalists sponsored Mussolini because he convinced them that for him he was against communism. And this influenced the rise of Mussolini. The year 1922 was the year in which Mussolini rose to power. The inherent weakness of King Victor Emmanuel III partly led to the rise of Mussolini. King Victor Emmanuel III was extremely weak. He failed to solve acute Italian problems that needed immediate attention. These, among others, included inflation, unemployment. Let me tell you the weakness of King Victor Emmanuel III. Because Victor Emmanuel III was very weak and he failed to solve problems like inflation, unemployment, and violence. It is this that influenced the rise of Mussolini. The year 1922 was the year in which Mussolini rose to power. So it was because of the weakness of Victor Emmanuel III that helped Mussolini to rise to power. Then the absence of unity among members of different political parties. It is said members of different political parties, like the communists, these ones failed to come together like to challenge fascism. It is this that made Mussolini to overpower them and his what? Fascism. Because still members of other political parties supported Mussolini, and this gave him an upper hand. Because he had the great support of fascism, even he had the great support from other political what? Parties. And this engineered the rise of Mussolini. Another one, Benito Mussolini's personality and oratory talent became a ladder for his rise to power. It is said Mussolini used his power of speech, oratory talent to convince the Italians that he was the only man who was going to solve their problems. So by this, they looked at him as the only star in the middle of the road. And by this time, they had to support him. Another key aspect, we are like saying, the role of the fascist terrorist group. The role of the fascist terrorist what? Group. It is said the fascist terrorist group was used by Mussolini. It was full of hooligans and lawbreakers. These ones were jobless people, and were so stubborn. They used it to threaten people that if you don't support Mussolini, we are going to kill you. People feared, and they had to support Benito Mussolini. So the role played by the fascist terrorist group. Another key element was the disappointment the Italian patriots got as a result of the 1919 Versailles peace settlement. What happened at Versailles? It is said Italy expected great territories after the First World War because in 1915 Britain approached Italy and convinced Italy that you move from the side of Triple Alliance and support Triple what? Entente. Of course, she was promised territories. But after the First World War, the diplomats at Versailles gave poor territories to a country called what? Italy, of Trieste and others. So by this time, the Italians were not happy. Mussolini used the Versailles Peace Treaty of 1919 to campaign for himself. He promised the people that I'm the only man who is going to solve all your problems. Then the use of the fascists to deal with the opposition. It is said those that were opposing fascism, Mussolini used the fascists to crush all of those people who are not supporting fascism. For example, on 31st July 1922, the government used the fascists to strongly combat, suppress the general strikes which was organized by the socialists. It is said at one time the government used the fascists to crush the socialists that were striking, the government of Victor Emmanuel. So this made Mussolini to get an upper hand because people looked at him as a man who could solve the what? Their problems. If people are rising up and he can contain the situation, it is this that made them to support Benito Mussolini. So friends, the year 1922 was the year in which Mussolini rose to what? Rose to power. So you must understand the key reasons that helped Mussolini to get political what? Power. The May 1921 parliamentary elections also contributed to Mussolini's rise to power. It should be noted that before May 1921 elections, it was only Mussolini and one fascist member who were in the parliament. However, the May 1921 elections increased the number of the fascist representation to 35. So when the fascists increased their number in parliament, it is this that gave them great influence. So they used this influence, and later Mussolini had to rise to what? To power. Another key factor, the poor socio-economic policy of the Italian post-unification government. I can say all of those governments that came after the unification of Italy failed to solve the social and economic problems of the people. In other words, people were unemployed, people had great poverty. So here comes a man called Mussolini. He convinced the people that I'm the only man who is going to solve all your what? Problems. And this engineered the rise of Mussolini to power. Another key point, extreme nationalism in Italy also contributed to the rise of Mussolini. The Italians had great love for their what? Their nation. by this, because they had great love for their nation, among their strategies, they wanted to restore the Italian greatness. You remember at one time Italy was very great, but in the Battle of Adwa of 1896, a man called Menelik, an Ethiopian, defeated the what? The Italians. When Menelik II defeated the Italians were humiliated. So Mussolini and others wanted to rebuild the greatness of a country called what? Italy. So extreme nationalism love for one of the country. Because they developed love for their country, that's why they supported Mussolini, whom they thought that he was going to solve their problems. Another key point, Hegel's philosophy also contributed to the rise of Mussolini. Hegel's philosophy emphasized that the state was the supreme manifestation of God on earth. Benito Mussolini was inspired by Hegel's philosophy to start the fascist prosperity party. So in this kind of arrangement, I can say Hegel's philosophy. Hegel's what? Philosophy. Hegel was a leading professor. He wrote and said that the state was like the supreme, was supposed to be what? Supreme. In other words, in this kind of arrangement, the state needed a great leader, and this leader was in form of Benito Mussolini. Because they looked at Mussolini as a great leader, that's why they had to support him. So Hegel's philosophy influenced the rise of Mussolini. Then another one, Pope Pius. Pope Pius the 11th. In this kind of arrangement, the Roman Catholic Church led to the rise of Benito Mussolini. I can say Pope Pius supported Mussolini to rise to what? To power. In this kind of arrangement, when Pope Pius the 11th supported Mussolini, this made many Catholic Church members to support Mussolini, and this led to his rise to what? To power. Another one, the successful fascist march to Rome in 1922. I can say at one time in 1922, the fascists marched to where? To Rome. As they marched to Rome by this time, they were like saying it was only fascism that is supposed to, it was only fascism and the fascist party that is supposed to be in where? In Italy. Altogether, their march to Rome threatened even those who were not supporting them. When they saw them marching, those who were not supporting, many of them joined the what? The group. And this influenced the rise of Mussolini. So the fascist march to Rome, my friend, this was not a normal march. This wasn't a wedding march. It was a march to take a political what? Political power. And this engineered the rise of Mussolini. So you need to understand, we are saying the role played by the Italian army and the police. It is said the Italian army and the police, for instance, in May 1921, the Italian army and police never intercepted or stopped Mussolini's soldiers, the Black Shirt Army, and other fascist supporters altogether. So by this time, the role played by the Italian army and police, the Italian army and the police led to the rise of Mussolini. Because when they were marching in Rome, the army and police did not intercept their movement altogether. So it is this that engineered the rise of Benito Mussolini. So you need to understand the key factors that influence the rise of Mussolini. Another one, unfulfilled land distribution reform. It is said in Italy, Victor Emmanuel III had what you call unfulfilled land distribution reform. In other words, he claimed that he was going to reform land, that even the peasants were going to get what? Land. But they were unfulfilled promises. Many peasants did not have what? Land. So it is this that engineered the rise of Mussolini. Another key point, the inherent weakness of the League of Nations. Another key factor that influenced the rise of Mussolini was the inherent weakness of the League of Nations. The League, which was formed in 1920, was very weak. It was very what? Weak. It failed to solve the hard questions of that time. So Mussolini capitalized on the weakness of the League of Nations to campaign for him what? For himself. Because by this time he knew that if he rose to power, nothing was going to be done to him, though he was a dictator. So he used the chance that the League of Nations was very weak to campaign for him what? Himself. And this led to his rise to what? To power. The year 1922 was not a normal year, because in that year, Mussolini took political what? Power. So friends, you need to understand the key aspects that helped him to rise to power. Another key point, the fascist propaganda also contributed to the rise of Mussolini. I can say the public speeches and newspapers, all of them made Mussolini a very popular man. This man was a great speaker. He knew how to arrange words. I can say he was a demagogue. He could talk and convince. So by this time, the Italians looked at him as the only man who could handle the unending, challenging problems in where? In Italy. That's why he was chosen, because he had great propaganda. Then, the introduction of the democratic reforms in Italy from 1900, from 1900 to 1940 60 also played the role